do a dull roller for everybody listening, and just to know that the meeting is getting. We will go ahead and thank you. We'll go ahead and just let everybody know that the meeting's getting recorded. So you saw that come up on your screen. Okay. All right. We going to popular pages then, Kelly?
Jumping in real quick. Month after month, I receive emails regarding the meeting link. Unfortunately, during this meeting, I'm running the slides, multitasking, trying to queue up everything else. I don't always have time to get back to you. Please know, all of these COG meetings are on our public calendar, and you can access the link by going to the public calendar. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. All right. Excellent. Yep. We want to make sure that we keep Kelly sane. So Sandy, got a question already. Jump in, Sandy.
Oh, here. I was just going to make a suggestion because I have had people ask me and I can't even remember where to find it. It'd be nice if there were directions or a link posted right on the front page of the MPART site, because I got it by going to the COG place and then looking for it. So you could get to it a variety of places. But if you're new to this, you're probably not going to know when you get to that front page to go to public meetings or the COG, the Citizens Advisory Workgroup. It'd just be really nice if there were a quick link on the very front page for it or something for new people.
Okay.
So just a thought.
A great segue, Sandy, because this might be one of your work assignments here for the. I know. Hey, thanks for raising your hand, though. We do have a work group that Kelly is going to go through here in a minute, and we'll probably explain more next month of redesigning some of the web page content. So if it needs to be more prominent, now's a great time to tell us. So
I believe it's also in the agenda that I sent out.
Okay, good. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. As I said, welcome to anybody who's listening in new. I do believe we have at least a couple people who might not have joined us before, so thanks for jumping in and listening. If you can, we'll go through the agenda. We've mixed it up a little bit, probably from what you originally saw, based on some of the discussion points you guys had. So, but we are going to try really hard to get out of here at 7:30. So let's make that our goal for tonight. Why don't you go to the next slide for us, Kelly? Or maybe, is it freezing up? There we go, Kelly. There we go. Okay, just real quick, for those of you who are new, and for some of our longtime members, the whole purpose of the COG is for this work group is to advise and assist MPART proactively to be the voice of our citizens, to sit at the table with MPART and give us ideas and perspectives from communities and really empower citizens, right? You guys are acting as the citizens for the state, and really advising us on how to do outreach, how to better engage dialogue, how to make sure we're fully informing, educating, and empowering communities, and also to make sure that MPART is, is informing the public in a timely, coordinated manner. So we've had conversations about these. I will say that we get a lot of conversation that comes through on email back and forth between the COG, which is great because we like lots of dialogue. I like to see that people are engaging with each other, bouncing ideas off. That's great. I really, though, want to make sure that the COG has a unified voice, and that we don't have one or two people that are necessarily driving the conversations. So when we get those variety of different ideas, you know, I'm encouraging, and we talked about this with some of the subcommittees today already, is that that those ideas get bounced back to the subcommittees and that everybody gets a chance to talk about them, that the whole COG gets a chance to weigh in, and that the COG gets to vote or to recommend specific action items or talking points or recommendations to MPART as a whole COG. So I really want one voice. I want this to be a collaborative process, and I want you guys to have a cohesive membership so that you're actually all working with each other to work on agreed upon goals and tasks that we might all set. Obviously, transparency is huge. We've talked about it a lot this year, and we're going to continue to be a data-driven, science-based approach to protecting public health, to engaging our members and making sure that our public is taken care of. So I just wanted to put that kind of in context for the COG. I get some inclinations that maybe some of the comments are more towards the watchdog type of encampment, and that's not really what the purpose is for this COG. And I think, you know, I understand some of the frustrations, but I think we really want to be clear that the COG itself is for, you know, to be that voice at the table to work with MPART on these various issues that affect our communities. So just going to start that out so we all are clear on that. That takes us then, and if anybody wants, we threw the hyperlink to the charter, to the COG charter in there as well. So you don't have to look for it. But as always, you know, for these meetings, we want to make sure that this meeting is that sounding board for process improvements, that we're working on identifying solutions, identifying concerns, and not necessarily focusing on one or two sites around the state, but looking at it holistically, so that, again, that we're making sure that we're being proactive, protective for everyone. And then obviously, open communication is all the basis and foundation for trust. I don't know if you guys are seeing it as much as I'm seeing it, but trust seems to be one of those things that we do not seem to have in our society right now. And so I'd really like, you know, to encourage this group that, you know, if there's things that we need to discuss, let's have good open conversations, dialogue, build that trust, because that's how we, you know, really make effective change. We're not afraid to have conversations, but we need to be able to have them in a respectful way that builds that trust, and we're able to actually talk with each other. So let's continue to do that. I think we've done that to date, and I would just encourage you to continue to have that kind of atmosphere and authentic relationship with each other. Let's go to the next slide real quick. There we go. Okay, couple MPART updates for you this year. And we do have, I think Marcus or Bill are probably going to do some additional DHHS updates at the end of the meeting, but just so everyone knows, we are planning to get the fish advisory updates done for DHHS by the end of the year. So we'll have an updated Eat Safe Fish guide out there. Additionally, our PFAS 101 video that we previewed with you guys last month is just about done with the final edits. So we'll pass around that little link. That's that short little 2-minute video that might be a great intro for a variety of different community uses that you want to use it for. Additionally, the AFFF pickup. So this is our specifically targeted towards a second wave of firefighting foam that's being picked up from our fire departments around the state. We are taking and working with the fire departments to get an inventory list of all the AFFF that's still around the state. Remember that we spent just about $1 million in 2019, 2020 to pick up about 50,000 gallons of AFFF around the state. And so we know that there's still some fire departments that have AFFF out there. So again, we're putting together another list, and we'll be doing some coordinated pickups around the state to try to get that all consolidated in one spot, and then U.S. Ecology will be taking care of it for us. Additionally, we're working on, under one of the legislative bills from Representative Yarrick, is a requirement that all firefighters, volunteer, paid firefighters, all of them have to have a PFAS training video so that they know what they're supposed to do when they can use PFAS foam or when they're not supposed to use it. How do they do best management practices? What are the recommendations? And so there's a video that's being put together through the fire marshal's office as well as MPART, and going through, the responsibilities of fire departments. Basically the best management practices are only use it in extreme emergencies of when you need to save lives. Other than that, we really don't want PFAS foam being used. And then when you do use it, obviously they will have to take measures to capture all of the PFAS foam and any contaminated soil or groundwater or soil or water that was used on any of those fires. So we're hoping to get that. We're going to start doing the shooting of the video here at the end of the month, and hoping to get that done by the end of the year. So, all right. Any questions on any of that? Okay. All right.
Actually, I mean, just real quick. So
Sure, Daniel.
on the on the the firefighting foam pickup, this is a question we get pretty often we actually had a fire along one of the interstates where they used foam, and we looked into it, and the line we got was that all of the counties in our area, which would be Oakland, Livingston, Washtenaw, had been basically completely covered for having replaced the foam, or being checked that they didn't have AFFF. And that applies to all the townships and other things. So I guess I'm wondering if it isn't available already, if there's a map, just showing sort of what areas have been covered, basically a green-red map or green-yellow map, or something like that shows what parts of the states haven't been checked yet. What do we know? What do we know we don't know?
That's a great idea. I don't think we've got that complete of data yet. I know that there's still a lot of fire departments that are still figuring out what they've actually got in the back room. Some of these fire departments have had buckets. I mean, most of these are 5-gallon buckets, so they're not big quantities. It's not like it's a big tote easily shoved on a shelf somewhere in the back room of a storage room, and unless they clean it out, they may not even know they have it. Some of them have, we've had at least one fire department that's given us like an estimate of having like 200 gallons of it. So I think some of them held on to some of the PFAS foam in case of emergencies because they didn't have good alternatives yet. And so now I think as the alternatives are starting to come on, we're still evaluating those. I think they're more and more able to let go of some of that product. So I think it'll be a slow process. But at this point, we don't have any kind of map or really complete way to know who's got what. We don't have that kind of information. And honestly, I think a lot of, what we're hearing anecdotally is that a lot of fire departments got AFFF donated to them over the years. And so from either manufacturers or from other facilities, and it was free, so they may have it in the back room and not even realize they have it, type of thing. I will say that, and Mike Jury might be able to talk about this a little bit later. We're doing some observations with Dow Chemical as they look at different foam formulations to see what kind of alternatives are out there that will still be able to put out chemical fires or petroleum fires, or these really hot fires that require the PFAS foam in order to smother it. And so that testing is being done by Dow, and so some of our staff have been able to go over and watch some of those demonstrations and see how well they actually work in the field, which has been that'll be one of the important pieces. Is it's great to have PFAS alternatives, but if they don't actually put out fire, then we've got to do a little better than that. So, all right, good question though. Any other questions on that? All right, let's go ahead to the next slide then, Kelly. Oh, this is the good news. I think you guys all got a note from Kelly. The Great Lakes PFAS Summit is open for registration now. It is geared for technical staff, so just know that some of this stuff is pretty highly technical on a variety of different topics. But we are having a panel on amplifying community voices. And so Sandy and Tony are going to be on that. And we've asked a few others to join as well. And so we're going to be talking about just this, really using the voices of the community to push these kinds of very important topics along and make sure that our communities are not only informed and educated, but are there to have a voice at the table. So, and I think Kelly sent you a note. The COG members then can go ahead and sign up for this with no cost. So otherwise it's $50 a person. So it's pretty low cost for a full weekend, or it's a little under a week. So it's Monday afternoon to Friday morning. But it's going to be a lot of really great sessions. So I encourage you to sign up for that. All right, next one. Amy, are you on? Yes. Amy, you want to take it away and tell our COG members about the new sites that we have brought up in just the last month. So this is since we last met a month ago. And where is Mickey? She was the one that suggested the different colored dots. So this is just for Mickey. I don't think she's here today. Go ahead, Amy.
Able to attend.
All right, very good. Well, yeah, you can see the list of sites up here. The first one that we put up within the last month was the Houghton County Memorial Airport, sometimes called the Houghton Hancock Airport. We had a call with local officials on that, as we do with all of our other sites before it went live. I've got in my notes here, the highest result here was 50,900 parts per trillion PFOS. And I believe they finished their phase 1 report and probably are beginning to work on the second phase of that particular site. Pontiac Lake State Recreation Area and Oakland County International Airport both went up at the same time after having a town hall about those two sites. A lot of reservoir sampling happening. These are sites that are right next to each other. Oakland County International Airport, we've got a lot of reservoir sampling around that area has already happened, and we're looking to expand the sampling in that area up to, I believe it's a mile north and south of the site, and also half a mile east and west of the site. So there'll be a lot more reservoir activity going on in that area. We've got staff going out in the field fairly soon to try to get a better handle on the stormwater at the Oakland County International Airport based on some stormwater results there. So yeah, a lot going on those two sites as well. Lax Industry Airline was the next site that we put up. That's in Grand Rapids. We had a call with local officials on that one, and we're going to be working on doing some special outreach to one neighborhood. I believe it's west of the site that one of the representatives or senators asked us to look into and try to inform the people of there. So reached out to the site lead last week, and we'll be working on getting some kind of messaging out to those people as well, just to make them aware of what's going on at that site. Detroit Metro Airport was the next one on our list. This one we had, again, we've had a call with local officials on that. We've got a town hall scheduled for next week on this one. Highest result here was 730,000 parts for training PFOS in the fire training area. This, like Pontiac, this site as well as the Oakland County Airport and Houghton one, they're all working under those airport grants, as is the Capital Regional International Airport. So they've all got funding to continue doing some additional investigations there. Coonan's Landfill was the next one. This is in Fremont, which is Newaygo County. We had 3 of 8 wells over criteria there. The highest result was 94 parts per trillion PFOA compared to 8, so not a super high strength source, but we're we'll continue moving forward on that one. And just today, the Capital Regional International Airport site went live, and we've already done some precautionary reservoir sampling in this area as well. And the highest result there was somewhere in the order of 30,000 parts per trillion PFOS. So quite a few sites, a lot of outreach going on for each one of these areas, and a lot of precautionary reservoir sampling as well. So that's what I got.
Excellent. Thanks, Amy. Any questions for Amy on any of these sites? And a lot of these airports are just in phase 1, so there is a phase 2 to a lot of these investigations, and they will continue on. And we'll get those results. All those results are due by April of 2022. So they have, in some cases, another segment of field work to do before they write up the reports and get them submitted. So, but in all of these cases, we've assessed the potential for there to be drinking water receptors, to be residential drinking water homes that are at risk. And we've, either have sampled or have not found any res wells that are at risk. And so, as in the case of Detroit Metro, there was no drinking water wells at all. So, all right. Let's go to the next one then. All right, so public notification recommendations. I wanted to take a minute because we did get a recommendation or a comments from the Michigan Manufacturers Association that I forwarded on to you guys 2 weeks ago. And that was something that was not necessarily solicited from myself, but they provided to us nonetheless from having downloaded it, because we did post the COGS public notification recommendation to the website. So they got it from the website and then submitted comments to us. So before I go on, Teresa, you got your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to ask, could you go back to the previous slide, please? Because I'm looking at, and I don't know if this is relevant to what we just heard about PFAS, U.S. Ecology here in Detroit is allowed to take in PFAS. And
yes.
So
they're a hazardous waste disposal site. Yeah.
And so my concern is that it's borderline Detroit-Hamtramck, right in the middle of a residential area. So I was concerned why that's not put on as a new site.
They have, like with the AFFF pickup, we are contracting with U.S. Ecology to properly dispose of AFFF. And so in that particular case, I know they are properly packaging it and then shipping it out to Idaho for disposal in a landfill that is specifically designed for hazardous waste. So all of that AFFF is not staying there in Detroit, but is actually being shipped out to Idaho to put in their landfill that's designed for it. And because it's in a very desert area, they have very little leachate that comes out of it. So it'll be much easier for them to handle without any leachate actually coming out of the landfill. So.
A question with that, yeah, that answers one part of the question, but the other part, if they're allowed to continually take in PFAS, how long are they allowed for it to store on there before it's packaged and taken out? And then my other question, it went from earlier, but I didn't say anything. I know that I have to be mobile sometimes, and when you call in, you're only listen mode only. Is there a way that when you call in that you can be able to communicate without just being in listening mode?
That's a good question. Usually people are unmuted when they call in, and so they're able to, I think it's #6, is it, to raise your hand when you're on the phone? But I don't know, Teresa, we'll add that to our next slide because I'm not sure how to do that when you're on the phone. But usually people are unmuted when they call in. So if you can't raise your hand, you can always ask a question that way. But you're saying yours is only in listen mode?
Right. When it says when you call it, it's on the in the information too for the Zoom. It says listen mode only, and so I know I have to leave early today, and
Okay.
so I wanted to transfer to the mobile. And thank you for the other answer, because I do need to know the answer to the question about how long they store that PFAS there so that we can prevent leaching and stuff like that, because I know that they've been allowed to expand their storage, and I understand more PFAS is coming to that location.
There is. Teresa, I don't have any good answers on those, so I'm going to have someone from that program actually give you a call back. So we'll send you an email with who that will be so we can get you to the right program person, because I don't have enough information to be of any use to you at this point.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Sandy? Oops, you're not unmuted though, Sandy. All right. Maybe Sandy doesn't really have a question.
I didn't see that Sandy did have her question.
Oh, I see Sandy's hand up. Do you not see it?
I do not.
Okay. I guess Teams is going to be just as funky as it was in the last meeting then. Okay. We'll see how this goes. I think we're going to have to double check each other on the hands today. All right, let's go back to the public notification and the MMA. We did have a meeting earlier today with the, and I guess I'm going to jump in here on Ken Harvey's his outcomes from the thing, but I just wanted to say to the larger group that the MMA, if you can go to that next slide, Kelly, what comments were not solicited by MPART. Obviously, we're open to whoever wants to submit comments because it's part of an open forum, public dialogue, public discussion. And so we're not going to discourage comments, but it is up to, my feelings are that those MMA comments are up to this group for discussion, for, any kinds of further evaluation. And if this changes anything for you, then it's up to this group to go back, and if you want to change anything to your COG recommendations, that is your prerogative, but it is completely up to you. And so I think I'll let Ken expand on that as he gets into those outcomes from the subcommittee meeting that we had earlier today. But that is not something that, thank you, Brian. Yeah, so star 5 is raise your hand and star 6 is lower. I don't I was telling the subcommittee earlier today, I haven't had much other communication other than that little bit from the MMA. I have not had any other people or entities reach out to us regarding the COGS public notification recommendations. So I think that, I think this is probably the only comments that we're going to get as a group on your recommendation memo. So hold on, I wanted to make sure I talked about if there was anything else on that. The one thing I did want to mention, and we can probably go ahead to the next slide, Kelly, is that, we've been implementing a lot of precautionary sampling. So one, it does notify the residents, but two, it notifies the local officials, notifies the legislature, notifies the community, but it actually gets to sampling, which we really need the data to be able to know whether or not these homes are at risk. So far we've been able to do like over 272 precautionary sampling of residential drinking water wells this year. And then, we're looking at different ways to try to do outreach to communities. And so this is where I still need your help. We have tried to do, Eagle has just launched a Facebook page. Just in the last month, we've been able to launch an Eagle Facebook page. And through that, we're able to connect into the other Facebook pages of communities or organizations or whatever. You can ask to be a member. So we've been able to do some of our advertising that way. So far we haven't gotten huge responses. And so I know we have, just for example, we've talked with Gail Dugan and Pam McQueer. I don't know if they're on today, but we're going to have an Otsego meeting tomorrow on just informing the public about PFAS and some of the updates. And there's also some residential drinking water sampling that DHHS is attempting to do in the area. And we've gotten very, very poor response again from the neighborhoods, and not only for the people who have been contacted by letter, who've been knocked on doors, who've been called, but also from trying to go through these Facebook pages and trying to do different outreaches to get some advertising for this particular meeting. And so, I think this is one of the most difficult parts of reaching out and making communities aware, is just trying to actually reach them. So I would be, open for some additional conversation on other opportunities or other venues. Are there different, media types that we can try? Yeah, Pam, jump in here, help me out.
Thanks, Abby. One of the things, and I'd have to say that I agree, as we've tried to get this meeting together, I've reached out to the media, posted on Otsego Community Awareness page, been calling friends, posting on my own personal Facebook page, and had an opportunity today, my first time as Mrs. United States Great Lakes, had an opportunity to talk about these type of public meetings and that. So it's very frustrating, on how to reach the numbers that we want to. I'm hoping that our community will be supportive, tomorrow evening, and we'll see, many of those online. And I'm sure Gail's on tonight as well, but it truly is a struggle, isn't it, Abby?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought that the ability to use Facebook to reach people would make it a little bit easier. I don't know if it would be easier if we actually created an event in Facebook and asked people to attend that way versus just a posting. But yeah, so far we're only at 8 people for tomorrow night. So it would be nice to get a few more than that, because that doesn't even include the 100 people who have been asked by DHHS to have their Reswell sampled. So I think we've got to find some different techniques.
I know that in the past, when we've had the community town hall meetings here, we were always surprised sometimes by attendance, on the listserv and that. I know through Allegheny County Health Department, we don't always get a lot of positive feedback. So I'm going to hope that that's going to be the case tomorrow night. If not, it's a learning curve, right? We continue to just learn from the experience and see what we can do to promote.
Yep. Okay. Other thoughts? Anyone else have better ways to get meetings out there or to just connect with communities? I think, to the point of doing public notification, this is a difficult one, because if we can't get people to show up or to answer letters or answer door knocks, it's very difficult to try to actually effectively notify people. Let's put it that way.
Abby, can you hear me? This is Lynn MacIntosh.
Hi, Lynn. Sure, we can hear you.
Oh, wow. I have my hand raised. You can't see that because I'm in my car, but I raised it. I was thinking just off the top of my head, had you thought of libraries in schools? Because people pick up so much at schools. I don't know if any of these areas are near schools, but I know that's how word gets around, and oftentimes there's Facebook pages on schools, and you're gonna, if you get some mothers who are concerned, it'll spread. That's one thing I've noticed. We used our Neighbors for Neighborhood Facebook page early on when this broke out, and it was a way to get the word out. And then we accelerate. I don't know what the word is, but you can make the post go further, I guess, or something. It's not that much money, but in the very beginning, that's one thing that we tried. I don't know if it would work, but it's an idea.
All right, the schools is another way too. That's a good one. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, libraries, sports facilities, like people who care about their health.
Yeah.
Just thinking out loud.
All right, thanks for that, Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So mute me again. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't think. Do you want me to mute you, Lynn? Or
well,
you're good?
You're supposed to. Well, no, I don't. I can't mute myself on the phone. I can unmute myself, but I don't know how to mute myself on this phone.
Okay.
Last time you guys muted me, and I said thank you, but you didn't hear me.
All right. Thanks, Lynn. Well, so just for, to really understand what we're trying to do, as you can see from the list of sites and the amount of town halls and the amount of local official calls just in the last month, we're, basically there's 4 of us that work full time on PFAS, and everyone else, we have 89 different site leads that are working on 188 sites. So, and their time is, not solely dedicated to PFAS. They're working on a lot of other issues. But we have a lot of work that's getting done. And so the notification process that we're trying to figure out here is how do we make this as efficient as possible to reach as many people as possible and do it effectively. And that's, I think, what one of our biggest struggles is. What is that? How do we do the effective notification? What does it look like? Who are we reaching? How do we reach them? All of those things. So my thoughts, at least on this, are we're going to continue to keep trying. We'll figure this out, and we'll continue to get as much good information to the residents as possible. And in the meantime, I think we're going to continue to keep sampling to make sure we don't have residents at risk. So, all right. Other thoughts on that? Yes, Tony, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that MPART has not adopted the COG recommendations at this point, correct?
We have adopted, we're implementing parts of it, yes. I mean, it's not all fully adopted. You know, I think the full implementation is notifying all communities about all PFAS events, right? That's, you know, in the broad context, that's what is being asked. And so we're trying to do that for every site that we have information on, and trying to get out there. But we're trying to take it one step further and actually do the sampling, so that we're not just letting people know about potential contamination. We're actually trying to find out if there is contamination in their drinking water well.
Right, but regardless, the principle that when an investigation begins, people are notified, that has not been adopted, correct?
In the, I guess it depends on how you're, at what point you're saying the investigation begins. Often we're getting, you know, sometimes these investigations have been ongoing, and so they just start sampling for PFAS. And so sometimes the communities already know about it. But, you know, we're not sending out information pamphlets yet to all communities on these things. Like I said, we're still trying to figure out how to best do that type of informational, educational type of information to the people. I don't think we have a good way to do that yet, Tony, to be honest. We're just not getting responses to even asking them to sample their wells. And so we're trying to figure out how to do this.
But asking somebody to sample their wells is different than sending out a notice that you've begun an investigation and they're potentially impacted. That's a different kettle of fish. And again, I think that I think that you're looking at a compromise here, which is what I brought up at the last meeting, that Eagle is not comfortable really doing anything until it has actual data. And so what you're trying to do is to bump up the time that you get the data and then blend that with the notice. And I think that's not what we talked about. I mean, I think I'm always in favor of getting information, but I think that I have sensed from before day one on this discussion that the agency does not understand the concerns that the East Bay residents raised, that the agency was very, very reluctant to even take up the issue. In fact, we were told prior to the meeting in March that it was outside of the scope of our authority. And then in the most recent FOIA documents that have been released, it appears pretty clear that the agency was really digging its heels in. And it appears that there continues to be an inability to reflect on the big picture and to let people know that there's a potential risk there when an investigation begins. So I don't think Eagle gets it at this point. And I think that that's part of the problem. I also think that this notion of that you have to have data before you offer someone, say, an alternate water supply, which I know was part of that whole FOIA thing that went on in Oscoda. One of the things that the agencies did right was they offered those of us who lived on the east side of Van Etten Lake alternate water supplies before there was sampling that was done. In fact, our wells weren't sampled. And I was very disappointed to see the attacks that were attempted to be made on the supervisor in Grayling Township when he tried to make a similar point. So I think there's a lot of convolution here. I think that the concept that was raised was a very simple one. And I don't think it needs to be this complicated, and I don't think it needs to be dragged out this long. So I'm concerned.
I appreciate your comments, Tony. You know, we're doing our best with the resources we have to try and take the concepts and implement them to the best. So I think that, you know, we don't always have the ability to do everything for every single site. We have thousands and thousands of sites across the state. Many of them with PFAS that have not been identified yet. And so we're going to continue to do our best. We're going to continue to take very seriously the public health of our citizens. We're going to continue to put them at the forefront. And public notification is a great concept, and we're going to try to implement it. But it's going to come slowly, and it's going to have to be incremental progress because it's pretty difficult. You know, it seems a very easy concept, but it's pretty difficult to do across 1,200 different, you know, people within Eagle who would have responsibilities to do that across all of our different and different programs. And so this has, you know, very large ramifications of which I am not all in control of. So I do appreciate your concerns though, Tony. Thank you. Bob, your hand's up.
Hi, thank you. Abby, I wanted to jump in on the issue of the supervisor and Grayling. The targeting issue that came up in the last, in the newspaper article and the follow-up today. Basically, I'm extremely concerned to find out that there is supposedly FOIA documents that show Eagle continues to attack reporters, newspapers, public officials. And then you come out with a statement in the beginning of the meeting today that you're not a watchdog. COG is not a watchdog organization. And my basic concern is that there needs to be checks and balances. That's a part of every government activity. There is no reason why Eagle should not be dealing with facts and laws and not attacking personalities because you are not on the right side of both of those other two issues. And it's just not consistent to keep going in this direction, talking about why people won't come to public meetings, but when the whole purpose of a COG is to tell you exactly what the concerns of the people are and to take the information that you collect and give it back to the community and tell them, believe in that regulatory agency. Now, for the purpose of all of the people listening today, I strongly recommend that you read the Flint Water Advisory Workgroup's criticism of Eagle's performance in that activity at Flint and contrast it with what's going on here in PFAS, and you'll find that there hasn't been a fix. And we're spinning our wheels. We need to simply fix this problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Bill? Barnett?
I'm a coming. Sorry about that. I'll get my hand down in a little bit here. Just a quick little comment. I do appreciate everyone's thoughts on trying to work together. I feel like we don't have enough information on things. I appreciate the media helping us look into things. They've done FOIAs, one in Travers, which was eye-opening. I think that should be shared with our group. There's nothing wrong with, we're all adults and big people. This thing was coming. We weren't really given any warning that somebody's digging into the back room of our emails and our state's emails. I think it was appreciated as far as I'm concerned that somebody's looking around, and these are things I think that could help us guide you if we were able to have those shared with us. The one that went to the Record Eagle was alarming. There's a FOIA that sounds like it went relative to the township supervisor. I think Eagle could probably hit a couple buttons and send those out to us, and we could all have those to see for ourselves what is going on, and hopefully our concerns won't be strong. The other thing is the Flint report that was just brought up. Sounds like that would be nice to read too, because that might help us see if there are pitfalls that aren't being addressed. But I'm appreciative of the leadership role that the Record Eagle's taken throughout the state here, because they're making a difference. I think they're representative of how all media should be to help states become transparent and get the word out and have knowledge shared with our citizens that are paying attention and wish to be informed and want to contribute to state government in a positive way. But I'd like to see those two FOIAs. without having them given to me by the newspaper or people outside of this group. I think that should come down. It would be nice to know if something like this is coming out in advance and that there are explanations. It's unfortunate to read those on a Sunday morning that there are some startling attitudes or starting points that were, I think, contrary to what our committee has stood for and what our leadership has provided us. I was startled to see that. I felt badly about Stephen leaving, but I just think there's more to this that we can help you with if we're informed. And those 3 documents would be nice. A FOIA from Travers, the one that was referring to the Grayling situation, and again, the Flint advice from the committee overseeing from the citizens in Flint, which is a terrible example of not only the DEQ failing us, but the other agencies. But we want to have positive results from this committee, and it would help to have all the information. I just feel like we don't have the ammunition and knowledge to help with the disconnect. The media is more in tune with it than we are, and we have to rely on them for their perspective, which has been excellent. But it would be nice to have a front row seat and know that these things are going on. And if big FOIAs are going out, please share them with our committee. We are mature about it. We'll read them, and it will help, I think, in the big picture. Thank you.
So Bill, I'm not connected with the FOIAs that go out. I'm not connected. Obviously Sherry and I talked in an interview, but I'm not actually connected in any of those FOIAs. So I have no idea what's going out and what's not. So
I'd just say that's not fair to you. The department should be letting you know that you're tied in with the citizens. Why not have you know, share them with us so that there is a connection? That's a disconnect and an issue right there, I would say.
yeah, but there's thousands of FOIAs that go out every year. I mean, thousands. And so it's a lot of information, but yeah, it is something that we don't necessarily know. Sandy, you've got your hand up, or at least I see your hand up. Is your hand really up, or are you not raising your hand this time?
Yeah, this is Connie. Can you hear me, Abby?
Sure, Connie.
Okay, great. I agree with all the past comments. I think we would add Benton Harbor to the list of Eagle's poor performance when they have to. It's very similar to the Flint situation, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but Eagle seems to, and I'm talking broadly, not you, Abby, but broadly, that Eagle seems to be more concerned about their PR, their public relations, and how they appear than actually dealing with the truth and solving the problem. I think Hugh McDermott gave a great example of lack of transparency on the 696 green ooze problem, and then all the other ones that you heard. To get a FOIA request would not really take very long at all. All you do is say, here is the FOIA, I want them on these 4 or 5 sites. And they give it to you within 5 business days or 10 business days. That is not rocket science. If you give me the names, I'll do the FOIA request for that and send it out to everybody. I think that information is truly important to be given to the COG members. And there was one other point I wanted to make. You talk about not getting people to come. Again, do you deal with your local news channels? I mean, the local news channels will have a blurb on it saying, hey, there's going to be a PFAS meeting on this time and this date. Go to it. Or you can do the alerts like the police department does all the time. There's got to be some easier ways to get the public notified. All right, well, that's my point. If you want me to do it, I'll be glad to do it. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Connie. Sandy, your hand is up. I don't know if it's supposed to be up or not.
Abby, I don't see Sandy's hand. I see Tony's hand again.
Okay. All right. Now it's gone. All right, go ahead, Tony. Your hand's up.
Actually, no, my hand wasn't up, so I'm not sure.
Oh, my hand's up again. Can
All
you hear
right.
me, Abby?
Yes, thank you, Lynn. Go ahead.
I'm walking now. Okay. All right. So I have a perspective here that it's mine, but I've experienced, I've lived it. Okay. I feel what I think it was Bill Barnett said to you. I don't think it's fair that all this keeps coming to you. I think that we should get some of these people who are higher ups to come to these meetings and talk to us as well. Because you see, you have to go to those 8 months for what happened in Traverse City, and you have to back up to the 8 years it took in Rockford. And again, it was the newspaper that broke the story, because when our group went to the DEQ, and I will say the name, under David O'Donnell, he ignored it. So that's when we finally realized we have to go to the media. So it is troubling that all these years later, now there's been an 8-month delay, and David O'Donnell, I know, was somehow supervising these actions. So it's not your fault, but we need Eagle to own up, because actually he got moved out of Grand Rapids and he was promoted to Lansing. Now, you know, it's not all his fault, but you have to understand how galling that is in our guts to think that people are waiting because of this larger, bulky agency. And at the same time, it shouldn't all be coming to you, Abby, because I can attest at the same time for your character and your sincerity. I know that you are doing all that you can do. And I think we ought to be able to talk at higher levels. Somehow get through as a group to our legislators, talk to Liesl Clark, these other people, and say, listen, hear it from us directly. It's unfair to keep trailing this through Abby. And people do better when they're saying, hey, you know what? We don't have it all figured out, but we're going to err on the side of letting you know the possible dangers and let you know right away when an investigation begins. We're going to do everything we can. We're kind of short-staffed, but to err in that direction, public notice is going to get, that's education right there and then. I know it's a lot of work and hassle. It creates more work, but I think it will even out in the long run. But I think an agency, like in that Traverse City article, they should by all means own up to it. What happened to this official in Grayling, I don't know that story. And I'm troubled by it. There needs to be an apology and an owning up to it. People can accept, I'm flawed, everybody's flawed, we can accept that. But we don't want this image to come out, or this idea out there that the image or the lack of full information being withheld is, as Bill said, we're adults. So we really, I think we need to be listened to directly. Maybe there's some representatives from the group, because I don't know the solution any other way is to just put it out there, go forward. That's it. But thank you for what you're doing. I know you're trying really hard. I do.
Well, it's not easy. That's for sure. So
it's not. No, I don't think anyone probably comprehends, because a lot of the time you should be thanked for how hard you are working. So that's where your higher ups need to step in. That's my opinion. There. I'm done.
All right. Thanks, Lynn. Pam, you've got your hand up.
I do. Abby, you know, coming off the heels of what was just said, I agree. I agree that, you know, you're in the hot seat. one of the things that was really important to me and very apparent in my own community throughout the last 3+ years in an investigation is when you're just a local resident and you really truly don't understand the process. You know, I've seen it firsthand for the last 3.5 years, how frustrated, the public gets. They don't understand, they want transparency, but they don't understand how important it is and how imperative it is that the agencies don't come out, they don't disclose, they don't say much before they have the data to support it. Because here at Siegel, that blew up in Eagle's face once when we had the dioxin false positive testing that came out. And basically, I didn't sign up to get into the pageant because I wanted to ride in a parade and wave and throw candy. I wanted to take this year in this position and being a part of MPART with all of the team players on MPART, that they'll support, as I know that they will, that we really truly get in there, make some legislative, suggestions, hopefully some changes. But I think that one of the things that's really important is that I know on my own, I've tried to, put in for FOIAs. And the media, they have a lot to say, in these investigations, potential investigations or contaminated sites. And, Abby, I know you'll remember this, that I suggested one time to a panel of journalists is that they'll speak about the story and cover the story. But very seldom do we ever hear about remediation, any closure for the public. And I think if there's going to be transparency and trust, from the residents with the agencies, I think that all of us here on MPART, we have to do our part to help our public understand and be good liaisons. And there's a lot of frustration involved at every level. But I know this year, making MPART my platform, my hopes is to help fill in and bridge some of those gaps and what is believed by the public that there's not transparency. And I can tell you on my behalf down here in Otsego, I've not experienced that once from any of the agencies. It's more the frustration, I think, the trail that the media leaves or the projection that they have. So that's my 2 cents on it. I think that we all need to come together, work hard, find the solutions, find the answers. And Abby, I wouldn't want your job.
Well, you can have it though, Pam, if you want it. So I will say that, legislatively, some of this notification stuff would be a lot easier if it was actually written into the law for us. Then it's at least a playbook to go by. There is nothing in our current laws that requires this, and so it does make it a lot more difficult to get broad-based application of notification type sequences and public information put out there at earlier stages, because we don't have anything in our current set of legislation to that effect. So,
and I think too, people don't really realize the fees that's involved when you pull these FOIAs. And if I understood someone correctly earlier, and I forget her name, she was saying, that the FOIAs should be available to the MPART members, so that we can see within the areas and that. But I don't think the clarity is there for the public to really understand about FOIAs and how that whole process works. And maybe that's something that we can help them have a better understanding of.
Well, and let me just say that, when you do a FOIA, it's not easy. I will admit it's not a great process. It is one where if the files haven't been scanned yet, they're all still in paper files, then they have to be scanned. So that requires time and effort. They have to be, pulled from storage units where we've got a record center in Lansing that stores a lot of these records. They have to be pulled from there and then gone through to actually pull out the information that the requester is looking for. And that in of itself takes time, as well as staff time, and then to go through to actually copy it, scan it, and do any required redactions. And so they can get very expensive. They can get very expensive. Now, there are some states, and one of the questions, one of the ideas that was out there, other states have actually scanned all of their documents and put them out there for the public for free. I would love to do that. That's one of the ideas we've been floating around for a long time, but it would take literally another 10 years to get all of our files scanned, indexed into a platform that could be made public. And it's going to take a lot of money. So that's part of the issue with FOIAs. Yeah, it does need to happen. But that's part of the issue with FOIAs is we're dealing with the backlog of paper. And we get, we'll get 5,000 FOIAs or, we'll get thousands of baseline environmental assessments, thousands of reports that come into all the divisions. And then, on top of the 30, 40, 50 years of data and documents that we've already got. So it gets pretty expensive pretty fast. Tony, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. And I don't think any of these comments, certainly mine, I don't think anybody making any comments personally for you. I do think, following up on Lynn's comments and some things that Bill and Bob said, as you piece these things together, and I could add, Lynn mentioned an 8-year delay in her community. There was a 7-year at least delay in ours. Sadly, Eagle continues to this day to deny that there was even a delay. And so there's a systemic problem within the agency. And it's something that we see in the communities, and that if we're going to be here to give you advice, we have to tell you what we're seeing. And when these things happen, you have not only the bad news of whatever the exposure is that you're dealing with, but you also have the realization that the people who are supposed to be protecting you withheld information for a long time. And the problem of trust is never going to be overcome until a couple things happen. The agency needs to recognize that there's a problem and that it has to address it. And as Lynn said, I believe it was Lynn, we all know that people are human. We all know that people make mistakes. One of the big problems with Eagle is that Eagle stubbornly refuses to admit to anything other than it's right all the time. And that ends up blowing up in its face. And so again, I'm not here to scold or punish or anything else, but to tell you, we need you as the agency. I'm not talking you, Abby, but we need you as the agency to succeed. And we want you to do that. And the comments are made in that context so that another Benton Harbor doesn't happen. Another Oscoda doesn't happen. Another Traverse City doesn't happen. And that we can then focus our efforts, not on attacking officials, not on auguring in and defending our little fiefdoms in the agency, but to solving problems, because they're tough problems. And so I think that, again, it's an agency-wide problem, one that, yes, the people at the top, I agree with Lynn completely, need to take a serious and hard look at in order to regain and establish trust, because that's the fundamental thing that's going to drive us forward.
All right. Thank you, Tony. I'm writing it down. Believe me, I'll be communicating it up. So, Daniel.
Yeah, so, Abby, you mentioned something that just caught my attention a little bit earlier. And this comes up a lot, and I think it's worth all of us on the call just doing a head check on it, which is that there are many occasions and circumstances where either by risk of legal action or by the way the law is written, that Eagle and other state agencies, depending on the circumstances, are really hamstrung by what they can do. And there are many cases where the laws are inconsistent with themselves internally. Part 201 is a mess, et cetera, where things really just don't make sense. And in many cases, that this basically leaves Eagle with very few practical options, unless the option is to take legal action and bring in the Attorney General or something else. But I think it's worth all of us on the call realizing that that has actually been by design politically over decades. That the laws that were meant to protect have been weakened, eroded. They've been made nonsensical in all of these subtle process ways, specifically to cause these kind of problems. And it's really frustrating for a lot of us as we dig into these laws and we see these just, these incongruencies, these nonsense things that are in laws within the statutes that just don't make sense. And the reason has been to protect polluters. And that's not pointing at anybody in Eagle or anybody that's charged with implementing these laws. That's completely pointing the fingers at groups like the Michigan Manufacturing Association and Chamber of Commerce and all of the other groups that advocate on behalf of the polluters and the politicians that listen to them and then enact those laws that weaken the protections. So what we need, I think, going forward, and what's really helpful to us is that there are countless cases, we can never track them all down, where there are all these subtle ways, in the process of how the laws are followed, how the rules are followed, that really cause problems for state agencies and the people actually trying to do the work. So anything that you can give us where it's like, what, this doesn't make any sense, and this really causes delays, that, this process that we have to follow really causes delays for communicating or taking action, and it's because we're worried about getting sued or whatever. I understand, as state officials, you can't advocate for something like that. That's not appropriate. But even just pointing out those, those logical failures in the law, in how these things, have been forced to made to work. For all of us that can advocate and, push on political leaders to make those changes, those changes are really important to know. But I know that also requires state officials saying, hey, you know what, there are things about how we operate that don't make any sense, and here's why. And of course you don't have to say it like that, but at least pointing out why these things are the way they are, and just being really clear. That helps us advocate on behalf of the people actually trying to do the work in the state agency. So as much detail and information as we can have on that, I think that that'll help everybody. But it is uncomfortable, to take that hard look. But anyway, I'll stop there.
And I think that's not necessarily an opportunity that Eagle's always afforded, to be able to offer those open criticisms of the law. We don't get to write the law. We have to enact the law, and it doesn't always make sense. So, a lot of these sites that we're talking about are sites where there are still liable parties available. They should be the ones doing the residential sampling. They should be the ones stepping out. But until we can prove that they have contamination or that they cause contamination in these areas, we can't necessarily ask them to do it. So it is a double-edged sword. And in an effort to protect public health, we're doing the best we can. Bob, I think you had your hand up first.
Right. I basically would like to simply respond to Dan. Dan, 3 years and 11 months ago, by Executive Directive 2017-4, Governor Schneider created MPART, specifically above and beyond the laws of the legislature. And he did that because he was required to protect the public health. And it was necessary for him, as the head of the administration, under his powers, under the Michigan Constitution of 1963, et cetera, to go to his agency directors and tell them that it was their primary obligation to protect the health of the people of Michigan. And he was forced essentially into that position in 2017 because of the crisis that had occurred earlier in Flint, and because of the failure of Michigan's regulators because of the laws that apply. But it's very clear and plain if you read the order creating MPART, that they are an agency, or were in any case, an agency of the governor's office designed to protect the health of the people. And above and beyond any financial or other issues that may have been put into any other legal processes. So it is, if the current governor has changed that position, she hasn't been clear about it, but I hope she has not, because I didn't support her to do that. And we need to press the obligation to protect public health. So that law, written by the governor, was put into force, and it's by his executive authority. And I don't know, that's what we got.
Yeah, no, Bob, and I think that to your point, Bob, that's part of what makes MPART so successful in doing just that, is the fact that we are an agency or a body above the regular workings of the divisions, but that we actually get to collaborate at that higher level to ensure that everybody's working together, that makes sure nothing's getting slipped through the cracks. And so, yeah, it's still all written the same as it was in 2017, only now it's an executive order under Governor Whitmer, and we are housed under Eagle, but still all the same directives and goals as we had before. I will say one of Governor Whitmer's first executive orders was to all state basically employees, saying that if you had information that public health was at risk, you were required to report it. And so I know she takes that obligation to protect public health very seriously, as do all of our members here of MPART. So thanks for that, Bob. Tony.
I didn't think I had my hand up, so I apologize.
Oh, no, that's all right. I think it's sticking. If that's
Okay.
possible on Teams, I think it's sticking. So, but I just saw Bob, your hand go back up. Is that real? No. Okay. Let's move on, because I think that I have jotted down a lot of notes. I will be definitely taking it back up to my upper management for additional discussion points. So, as you all have acknowledged, I'm not necessarily the hub of all things that happen in the state, but I will take the messages up to those who I think can best help us to make some changes. Some of the conversation
Abby, there were just two things, again, just distilling what everybody said. For the next meeting, is it possible to have Ms. Clark, be present so that we could talk with her? And secondly, would somebody follow up on the FOIA request?
I will check with Lisa, Director Clark, to see if she's available. And I will look into the FOIA, but I'm not sure. I hear all of the concerns, and I'd like to work on those concerns. I guess I'm not sure what else can come out of the FOIA. I think the Record Eagle did a pretty good job of covering it. And so I guess I'd like to take those concerns and build forward with those concerns and see what we can come up with.
Okay.
But thank you, Connie. I will get back with you on getting the director here.
Okay.
For
the group, not just me.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Connie. Last month we did talk about. We had a lot of brainstorming and a lot of great ideas on PFAS. What I've kind of relabeled as PFAS transparency measures. I don't know if that's the best label, but I don't know. That's where my brain was going this morning when we were redoing the slides again for the 18th time. And one of the big things we talked about last time was labeling of products. And I think, Connie, this was one of your comments, was talking about safety data sheets. I just got a notice earlier today. I just found out about this, and maybe you guys are already ahead of me. But Senate Bill 217 was introduced, and it's actually got a March 10th date, but Senators Bayer, Irwin, Brinks, and Polhanke introduced Senate Bill 217, and it would require consumer notification of consumer products containing certain fluorinated organic chemicals to authorize promulgation of rules, provide for powers and duties of certain state agencies. So it would be basically a consumer product labeling bill. And so I want to send, maybe Kelly, I think I sent it to you. If you could attach it to the chat for this group. This is something that I'd like you guys to look at and maybe take up as a subcommittee or think about. I didn't get a chance to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, but I think there's probably things maybe you guys would want to comment on, and maybe we can get back to the senators or and speak with them directly on what other kinds of ideas you guys might have for labeling of PFAS products. The one thing I didn't see in this was that there was no requirement for the percentage. It said PFAS consumer products means any consumer products that contains PFAS. PFAS means any organic chemical containing at least one fully fluorinated carbon atom. Now, I don't know how manufacturers or anybody else is going to determine what's got one fully fluorinated carbon atom in it as far as a measuring process, but it seems like we'd have to give them some basis for listings. So anyways, let's go ahead and pop that into the chat if you can do that for me, Kelly. So I thought that was pretty exciting. And then I know there was some discussion on laws prohibiting PFAS use. And was there anyone in this group that had more information on any laws in development here in the state? I know there was some talk about some stuff going on in Maine. Anybody else want to report out on anything they've heard this month about PFAS being prohibited for use in the state? No? Okay. I think we've got some more information, but there were some emails back and forth about listing companies in Michigan that had PFAS discharges or that had PFAS, either into sewers or into rivers. There was also discussion on knowing who has, and actually, Kelly, I can go ahead and share the screen real quick. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah, for whatever reason, Teams isn't allowing me to attach it in the chat, so I can send it to the COG members.
Okay, that's fine.
And the email.
There, I can do that. So talking about PFAS consumer products and other sources. So one of the things we thought that would be really helpful tonight, and we are running a little bit short on time, is to, I'm just listed here a list of other state websites that we do have a lot of information on. So I think everybody's familiar with the environmental mapper. So you can see where sites of environmental contamination are in your neighborhood, as well as the water well viewer, which is, you can see all the water wells in the state, at least the ones that we have on file. And then obviously everybody knows the MPART website. One of the other lists that I have here are Part 201 facilities. So that would be all of the it would be both Part 201 and 213. So all of our underground storage tank sites that had releases to the environment, as well as all of our groundwater, soils, facilities in the state. So that would be a lot of our manufacturing, our plating, our tanneries, you know, old dumps that aren't necessarily landfills, but dumps would all be listed in this 201 facility. And so that RIDE is a database that's got additional information. But one of the other things that's in here is this My Waters, and that's got all of the additional information for dischargers across the state that may have NPDES permits or other types of permits that either a groundwater discharge permit or a surface water discharge permit. Additionally, we have the industrial pretreatment program here that has a lot of information. And so we asked, and let's see if Brian's here. Brian, you on?
I am
Brian,
here.
Brian, bless your heart, Brian. Thank you for hanging in here. So Brian agreed to give you like the 5-minute tour of My Waters and the IPP program, just to kind of, because I'm not honestly that fluent in going my way through those websites. So Brian, do you want to take control? You can probably request control in, I think, or do you want to take it from your, probably from your desktop? There you go. Thank you.
I stole it.
Perfect.
So, thanks,
so Brian,
Abby.
why don't you take 2 seconds and introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are.
Sure. Yep. I'm Brian Zuber. I'm with the Water Resources Division in the Emerging Pollutants section. I mostly deal with PFAS at industrial stormwater facilities throughout the state. And I have my own specific region, but we have 2 new people, so I'm kind of helping them out. I used to do industrial stormwater compliance, but I moved into this. So the first that we're going to look at is My Waters. This is the online database for the Water Resources Division. This may include information from other divisions, but it's mostly meant for housing and accessing information that's been submitted to the Water Resources Division. So as you can see, these are all individual sites within My Waters. So this group's got 204,920. This one's 105,000. As I zoom in, you can see they'll all eventually break out into smaller groups. So one of the things that we can do is you can search by the site specifically or an address, and it will zoom you in. It is a little slow sometimes, but with this group specifically, I'm going to show you one interesting filter. So the filters can be accessed by this sort of abacus looking thing, and then you click on filters, and under site type, oops, not all those, I didn't want that. You can scroll down here and click on PFAS, and this will give all of the sites in My Waters that have PFAS information. And also I should point out that where we have selected this, sometimes we try really hard to make sure that all of the information, all sites that have PFAS information have this designation checked. So you can see we went from 200,000 down to 239 total sites. And the other options you can do with these filters is sort by county. And so if you select choices within a category, that it's additive. So if I click this ballast water, it would include PFAS sites and ballast water sites, not PFAS sites that are also ballast water sites. But with the counties, why did I do that again? I just clicked county. So if we do the counties, So we can select Allegan, and now we can see there's 4 sites in Allegan that are PFAS sites. And these in particular are all wastewater treatment plants. So one of the other things that we can do, I'm going to clear these out here. And so we're going to look at one specific site. Building wastewater treatment plant. So if you select a specific facility, you get this kind of real quick sort of summary. You can see there were a total of 88 evaluations, 728 violations, 15 compliance actions taken, 919 documents. So you want to show me more information. This provides some basic level, the watersheds, and some of the site codes. So like this is a sewage system. This is their standard industrial classification code. Probably not all that helpful. The map gives you the different points and locations. So this is, I'm guessing, I'm not in tune with all the dots, but that's probably the facility's actual location. Yep. So you can click on each of these and it'll tell you what they are. Under environmental interest, this is a list of permits that the facility has. So currently they have an individual NPDES discharge permit. Here is their permit number. It can tell you version 5. This is the fifth iteration of that specific permit. Gives you the start date and then its expiration date. Then we go to compliance. You can see there are 88 different evaluations. You can scroll through these. You can sort them by the program, which I'm assuming they're all probably NPDES, or the type. So NPDES Recon, Industrial Pretreatment Program inspections, compliance inspection and programs. And if you click the little plus, you can get a little bit more information on them. Here's the 4 facilities that have multiple permits. It'll say which permit specifically that inspection was related to. And then this note here tells you how many violations were identified. When we click on the violations tab here, we get a list of all the different violations. And you can get a little bit more information on those. Let's see. So this one was NPDES unpermitted discharge. We can see that that was on March 24th of 2021. And you can keep scrolling through all the others. Under compliance, these are different compliance actions the department took with the facility. So in this one, a compliance communication was submitted, this one a violation notice, and you can, just like the others, you can click through there and you can see the dates that they were issued and how many violations were addressed in that action. Under the documents tab, you now have access to the 921 documents that are associated with the site. If you are looking for a specific document, you can type in under the file here, you can type in the specific file, the specific types. There's different file types here. These are other descriptions that you can add. And so if you wanted to see, let's see, I don't really want to open up an email. Let's look at this inspection report. Just click on that, it downloads, and we can open up and we can see what the inspector, Chris Bauer, conducted an inspection on 8/23/21 at the Belding Wastewater Treatment Plant, roughly 9 o'clock. And then any of the comments, you can see all the different things. I'm not going to look at these specifically, but you can see like everything in here that the inspector noted. Let's see. And there's other features too. Excuse me, other features too. You can, if you have any specific interest, you can measure distances from here, from a site. There are some ability to download files, and then you can change the layers, either street view, satellite, or topo. And you can add different map layers as well. There's like wetlands down here. And then this little I gives you helpful information. It kind of goes over a little bit what I was discussing, and of course the required disclaimer. And all right, do you have questions? So Kelly.
Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. MPDS permits, such as building a wastewater treatment plant, they operate under a MPDS permit.
Mm-hmm.
They are issued, as permits are reissued, they are adding PFAS limits to permits. The amount of PFAS that they're discharging, would that be reflected in the discharge monitoring reports available here?
Yes, if a facility is required to submit PFAS sampling, most likely specifically PFOS, then those values would be reflected in the DMRs and would be available here. Many of the sites have, even if they're not NPDES like direct or individual permits, so some of the industrial stormwater permits, they're submitting PFAS sample records to My Waters as well. So some of the industrial stormwater facilities, we're requiring them to collect stormwater samples. And when they submit those samples, those are available in My Waters.
Thank you. So the reason why I asked Brian to show you this is because we received several comments about industries discharging PFAS. So, you know, unfortunately, we don't have a list. However, we have this tool and all of these documents and data, it is available.
Yeah, well, I mean, so we sort of have a list, like right under here with the PFAS down here, it will, now this is for facilities that have submitted data. Of course, you know, we're continuing our own investigations with surface water sampling and things like that to identify additional facilities that are discharging PFAS in their stormwater or in their effluent that we aren't currently aware of. Of course, we can't have that because we don't know, but for any of these here, this is specifically that there is PFAS data. So there could be non-detects. So I mean, I don't specifically know about this mobile home park or the situation there, but we may have had sampling conducted there, and it could even be drinking water well. Well, that might not be. It might be in there though because they're community based, but that information would be in there. Like the results would probably be in there, or it was mentioned during an inspection. So it's not all like these. This does not mean that they are all exceeding our water quality value.
Thank you. So this is one tool that can be used to obtain the data without having to submit a FOIA request.
Yeah. Dave?
Oops, you got to unmute yourself, Dave.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, this question is more directed towards Abby and Kelly than it is you. I'm confused. You just showed a previous slide that talked about last month, we talked about being things that were going to be proactive, things that we could do way above and to eliminate or prevent PFAS. You guys kind of blew over that slide real quick, and now we're into something completely different here. So I'm confused because we sat down. This is okay. I understand that this is an area where we can find some data for wastewater treatment plants. But what about all private industry and all the other stuff? Okay. What about all the labeling? What about, I mean, this to me, and I'm very disappointed at the fact that people spent the time to put all this information together, and we had one slide that we probably spent maybe a minute on. So I'm confused.
So I can maybe help a little bit, at least from what I understand you're saying. So this is not just wastewater treatment plants. So like right here, Georgia Pacific corrugated, there's an airport, but this is.
I'm not confused. We talked about a month ago, we talked about areas about being proactive and being ways down the road to prevent stuff. We were told that we put together a list and that we were going to expand on that list and we were going to brainstorm. Okay, unless I'm completely off the mark. We've got one small slide that we spent a minute on, and we went in some other direction. So I'm confused.
We can certainly go back to it, Dave. You know, some of the follow-up.
We talked about this a month ago. All right. So, and I'm going to say this, and don't take offense to it, but if we don't want to be proactive, and we found another 7 or 8 more sites this month. So 8 months, 7 sites every 8 months, or 7, 8 on the average of 7, 8 sites per month, and we're being added to this list. We might as well paint Michigan as one big blue purple dot, because that's the way it's going to end up. So for our children and our grandchildren down the road, okay, we might as well confess and say, we're going to be living with PFAS. We have no way, we have no intention of finding ways of preventing stuff from happening. So I'm blown away.
Well, I think that's why we're here, right? We're here to talk about the future, and we can't change.
But we talked about 1 minute. We spent 1 minute talking about. You spent one slide. We mentioned a couple things. You talk about transparency. Transparency and prevention are 2 different animals, in my book. So we didn't talk about anything.
Okay. We will put it on the agenda again for next month. Preventative measures are tough, and that takes a unified front from not necessarily just MPART, obviously. It's got to come from legislative measures. It's got to come from national efforts. And it's a holistic approach. So that's not something that's going to get solved in 1 month.
I don't disagree with that. But, okay, when are we going to do? Are we going to just not do? If we have to get legislation involved, we have to get other people involved. Then let's make a list and let's assign ways of getting this stuff done down the road. I'm not saying it has to be done now, but I just got the impression I just got blown off.
Okay. Well, my apologies.
Abby, can I say something, Abby?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I can understand Dave's frustration, and I wanted to make a suggestion, because this happened when, we had the subcommittees who drafted these ideas, but actually some of us in the COG who weren't on those subcommittees continued to interact with the committee. We finally, when the time was running out to at least give these recommendations for notification, we called an extra meeting. And it didn't work out, so we called a Zoom meeting, just our group. And I think sometimes it might be good for our citizens group, I think it's in protocol, to start to form some little chats around different topics. And that maybe that will become a subcommittee then. Because some of us really want to talk and brainstorm. And I think we can do that amongst each other too. I thought that process, for those of us who were kind of behind the scenes and not officially a part of it, there were good back and forth. And then we finally talked. A nice Zoom meeting. There were like 12 of us. And we got a lot done. And so I think I'm asking this to the whole group. Doesn't have to be, if you don't have the time, that's fine. If you think we ought to have just a citizens only in between these meetings, I have the time. I think it'd be a great idea just to have the citizens get together and talk and brainstorm. So I'm throwing it out there. I want to throw it out there anyway, because I can understand Dave's frustration. I completely can. And I understand the limits of time. But he's absolutely right. And I I wasn't at the last meeting, but prevention, we need people working on prevention. We need a group working on legislation. And it occurred to me while we were sitting here, I love coming up with ideas, I'm sorry, but, you know, we've got to call the companies out. I mean, we talk about how Eagle handled the situation, but, you know, you gotta call out the Wolverine Worldwide, you got to call out the Air Force, you got to call out Cherry Capital. They're the ones that really need, you know, the polluters we need people who can help with that. I don't know. I think if some of us formed little smaller hubs, it might be a good idea. And Dave, I'm not trying to take away from what you're saying. I'm trying to just, I got so mad. I finally said, I'm not mad. I finally said, we're going to have a meeting halfway in between then, because we can't wait another month. So I'm going to say, you could suggest that.
There has to be direction from the MPART team as to what we're going to do, who's going to work on what topics need to be discovered, and not just go off in little groups and do our own thing. That's not the way to do it.
No, but we can do it in between times so that we're more fine-tuned and ready.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. So this was one of my questions when Kelly and I were starting to put slides together, and we realized we had too much content and not enough time, was whether or not we should start a subcommittee specifically for, you know, brainstorming additional preventative measures or brainstorming additional, you know, there's a lot here. And each one could be its own subgroup, but, you know, the COG has to kind of come together to think about what kinds of ideas are going to be the ones that the COG wants to actually focus on. What are the ones that are the most important to the COG, whether it's labeling or it's prohibition of PFAS uses in the state or consumer products, or, you know, what is it that the COG wants to do? You know, it shouldn't be from me that I can help lead the group, but I want this to be a citizen-driven conversation and group. So you tell me what are the ideas that are most important to this group?
I'll tell you one thing, Abby, when you have so many sources of PFAS, what you have to do is stop the source. So that means you take Maine's approach and you prohibit PFAS. I know that's way at the opposite end of what anybody wants to do, particularly manufacturing. But if we don't take something to stop the PFAS, it'll keep emanating and we'll never control it. And of all the sites I've ever worked on in my life and all the pollutants that I've worked on, this is the toughest. PFAS being indestructible. This is the worst. I really cannot see a way out of this unless it's prevented. So yeah, I agree with you. We got, maybe one of our meetings is just on how do we attack PFAS as a source of contamination. And
it's good.
Get ideas out there.
Okay. Daniel's hand's up.
Yeah, and I know we're, you know, over time, of course, but so I'll try to be brief. You know, there's a lot to unpack in the last several comments. So I want to just reflect on that a second. What I see our role here during these meetings, it is to guide MPART, guide the state agencies from a citizen perspective, and we can make recommendations, and we can, ask for more information and do all the things that we're doing. And that is why in some of these cases where there are shortfalls and folks in the state agencies understand where there are those inconsistencies or the things that make their jobs harder to do, where it makes it harder to prevent PFAS from getting into waterways and groundwater. It's important for us to understand, where those issues are really specifically and why they're allowed to happen. But the advocacy piece in trying to particularly as we get into policy. It's certainly helpful to know why those or where those policies are failing, but when it comes to advocating for policies that are in state law, that's where I feel like we need to get involved with these other groups. Of course, everybody, I think I'll recommend getting involved with your local watershed conservation organization, but there are several PFAS action groups now across the state. The PFAS Action Network, Great Lakes PFAS Action Network is up and running. There are several groups that are looking at exactly these types of things. And so to Dave's point, that there are many sites across the state. Those aren't new sites. We're just getting better at finding those sites, understanding the risks. So it isn't that there are these new sites coming up. That being said, there are risks that emerge from taking action. So as we limit PFAS, or as we restrict some PFAS, we know companies are switching over to other PFAS compounds. So that's something that we need to address. We need to make sure that the state is taking action on. But in terms of just completing that loop of guiding the state in this forum, but then also working with other advocacy groups to make sure that the policies change at the top. Because if it is accurate that if we really want to stop PFAS contamination long term, we're going to have to limit the use. We cannot keep letting them into the environment. It's the same basic problem as climate change. If we want to stop climate change, we got to stop the carbon. If we want to stop PFAS, we got to stop the PFAS from going into the atmosphere. They're both permanent in a sense. So we're going to have to address those issues. I think it makes sense for us to work in this forum to try and figure that out. But I do want us all to realize we have to work in other forums as well to get those big policy changes in place.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. That's perfect. I do want to we've got 7 minutes left, and I'm not going to let us go past 8 because we have already gone a half hour over our schedule allotted time. Kelly, I want to take 1 minute and just highlight the end of our slide deck had a announcement from the Michigan Environmental Council for a scholarship fund set up for AJ Birkbeck and for in his honor. And so I just want to take a minute to highlight that as someone who has put his life and his work and heart and soul into environmental protection just as well as you guys are doing, and had that passion. I want to just recognize AJ and this scholarship fund that has been set up. Because I understand, AJ's not doing well, so I know he'd still appreciate all your prayers and support that way, and just keep him in your thoughts. So I would take, our next meeting's not scheduled till November 9th, but what I'm hearing is that there's some recognition and maybe need for a supplemental meeting, let's put it, a brainstorming meeting, either of one of the subcommittees or a new subcommittee to work on preventative measures. And so if we were to set something up between now and November 9th, is that something that a lot of people would like to do? Why don't you just raise your little hands and tell me if that's a good idea, or give me a thumb up, or because we can go ahead and schedule that if you guys are available. Okay. So it looks like we've got a number of people who would be interested in something like that. Let's look at calendars real quick, because I can't let you go till we actually, yes. And as Daniel says, this will be a very long marathon and not a sprint. So just to get things started and get the conversation started. And I really want this to come from a subcommittee, so we can either go with the current engaging the community subcommittee or other. How about the week of October 25th? So that would take us out 2 weeks and put us squarely in the middle of our next meeting. And Ken, I hate to dump this on you, but would you be open to kind of hosting that? Or
did we have a date?
How about the 25th or 27th? Either of those dates work for you guys?
What day of the week is the 25th?
25th is a Monday.
Okay. I would be willing to take that because I see how that ties kind of into what we've already been doing. Monday the 25th.
How many, so Dave Wind, would that work for your schedule? Monday the 25th? Okay. And Daniel, how about your schedule? Would that work? Monday the 25th?
Yeah, it looks open here. I've got a bunch of stuff on the 25th earlier in the day. Wednesdays are always a little tricky for me, but I can make it work.
Okay, well, this would be a Monday. But
yeah, the 25th looks
Saturday.
Yeah, October 25th looks good in the evening.
All right, you guys
late
got
afternoon.
6 o'clock start then, and I'll promise that one of us will get on so you guys can all get admitted to the Teams link we can send out, so you don't get left out on the cold front door.
So we find ways when you don't do that in our own meetings.
Honest, it wasn't intentional. All right. So let's plan a supplemental meeting then to go through those additional preventative measures, because I think there's a lot of great ideas to be had, and I think we probably need a more comprehensive list than the few notes that I jotted down last time. So let's go through those, and if anybody's got, if anybody's actually reviewed, I think, Tony, have you already gone through the main legislation or reviewed any of the other?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. If you've got good examples of Maine or any of the other legislation, that would be good blueprints, so to speak. Let's bring those, let's forward those to the group so they have them for review before the meeting.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right. It is 7:59. Any final thoughts? We'll plan on November 9th for our official COG meeting, but we'll put this one on the calendar. Kelly can set up and send out invites to the group for a October 25th meeting. All right.
I just want to say something real quick that, yeah, I know this is a super frustrating problem.
We were going to 6 o'clock.
Yeah, 6 o'clock. That would be great.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, I just say, yeah, I know a lot of us are frustrated. You know, and a lot of us have been working on this for a long time and thinking about it for a long time. I appreciate everybody sticking with it. I appreciate everybody, you know, continuing to look at, you know, all the options that are on the table. So I just don't want people to lose heart or get frustrated. You know, when we look at, you know, the speed at which we've had really meaningful things happen in Michigan on PFAS, it's, you know, compared to other contamination issues, you know, it's significantly faster. So there is cause for hope, and you know, appreciate the work that's been done. And of course, we need to do more. There's lots more. You know, this is a permanent problem at the moment. So that's not to diminish what needs to happen. There's years and decades of effort ahead on this, but just don't want people to get, get frustrated. It's, I appreciate all of you. You're all doing good work, and let's keep going.
Can I have 5 seconds with you guys, maybe 10? Bill Barnett, I'm just hoping that the Eagle could reconsider charging that paper. I think that we should vote as a board to recommend to the state to waive that fee. That had a community service, and it was worth it to every reader and every one of us that have known more about our agency and leadership that we didn't before. I just think that was too much to charge a newspaper who's doing a great public service. And that next meeting, I'd like to see us vote on waiving that fee, or ask the department to consider waiving that in this specific instance based on the result and the community benefit that's occurred. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Bill. I'll bring it up to my management and see what they say. All right. As Daniel so eloquently said, thank you for your patience. Thanks for hanging in there. I appreciate your honest feedback. It is tough. I understand working with government is tough, but part of the ability to be here is you guys being able to represent your communities and represent their voices. And so I'm completely aware that not all of it is going to be sunshine and roses, and that sometimes we need to talk about things that are less pleasant, and sometimes we need to get into the trenches and really figure out the true solutions. So appreciate your honesty, authentic conversations, and just appreciate you guys all being here and sticking until a full 8 o'clock tonight. So thank you all. We'll see you on October 25th for a subcommittee, soon to be named subcommittee meeting. And then we'll come back on November 9th, right, for our follow-up COG meeting. So
Abby, it looks like we have 2 final hands. Mary, do you have your hand raised for the purpose of speaking, or?
Okay, I don't see Mary's hand. I see Dave Wynn's hand, but I don't see Mary's.
No, I'm all set.
Dave's all set. Okay. And
If that was Mary Blanchard, I did not have my hand raised.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we didn't leave anybody hanging.
Thank you.
well, I think we've got ghost hands going around here. So, all right. Enjoy your evening, and thanks again for your patience, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, see ya.
Thanks, everyone.